Welcome to the Fantasy Checkdown podcast, and today we'll be doing the Week 2 NFL picks. And each week, I would like to point out who I thought was the best player of Week 1, and that is the man you're seeing right now, Aaron Rodgers. 32 for 44, 364 yards, and 4 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, as they defeat the Minnesota Vikings, and the Packers offense really looked great, and Aaron Rodgers has proven to the Packers that they should have not have drafted Jordan Love. First off, we have the Thursday night game, Cleveland versus Cincinnati. Both teams 0-1. We'll start with the Browns. Baker Mayfield is starting to legitimately look like a bust as he has zero accuracy, which he had in college, and he can't connect with Odell. They have zero relationship. Baker targeted Odell 10 times. Odell only came down with 3 of them for 22 yards. You also saw Jarvis Landry have 61 yards. Njoku have 3 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. And who they had as the highest paid tight end at the time, Austin Hooper, only had 2 catches for 15 yards, which is not looking like worth the money. But David Njoku is on the IR right now, so that opens up a lot for Austin Hooper. Jarvis Landry also got banged up last game. He has a hip injury, and he's questionable for the game against Cincinnati, but I believe he's playing. Another interesting thing with Cleveland is their backfield split. Kareem Hunt dominated Game 1. He had 17 touches to Chubb's 11, and that might have just been because Cleveland was down by 20 in the majority of the game, and Hunt is easily the better receiving back, but Nick Chubb is the split's starting to do 50-50 and starting to go more in Hunt's favor. Now onto the Bengals, coming off a heartbreaker against the Chargers as Joe Burrow went 23 for 36, 493 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, but he did rush a touchdown in. Against a good defense in your first ever NFL career game with no preseason, Burrow played pretty well. He put him in position to go into overtime, but Reggie Bullock completely missed the field goal. It shanked so far right, and I feel like he tried to sell the injury because they said nothing happened. But Joe Mixon in this game had 19 rushes for 69 yards, and I feel like it's starting to become a trend with Mixon. He starts off slow, but they also were playing a good Chargers defense, and I think he will have a better day against the Browns. AJ Green, 9 targets, 5 receptions for 51 yards. Got a touchdown called back for offensive pass interference. CJ Uzomah, 5 targets for 4 receptions for 45 yards, and rounding out was Tyler Boyd, 5 targets for 4 receptions and 33 yards. So overall, the wide receiver share was kind of split outside of AJ Green, who we all figured would be Burrow's go-to as a rookie. But in the end, I think this game is going to be close with all the injuries. Browns' line's kind of shaken up, but I think Cleveland takes this one 24-20 and bounces back in 1-1 record. Next, we have 2 more 0-1 teams. The Atlanta Falcons traveling to Dallas for a 1 o'clock matchup. We'll start with Dallas. Their offense just looked like it did last year. Play calling was very bland and inconsistent. There was no creativity. They didn't really take any deep shots downfield until it was way too late. And it seems like Mike McCarthy might have to take the reins away from Kellen Moore soon, or this offense might be a repeat of last year. Dak Prescott went 25 for 39 for 266 yards, 1 touchdown, and 30 rushing yards. Ezekiel Elliott had himself a day, 22 rushes, 96 yards, and a touchdown, and then 3 receptions for 31 yards and a touchdown. He was really the premier playmaker for the Cowboys all day. He looked great, even though his new tattoo is pretty questionable. Amari Cooper saw a whopping 14 targets, brought in 10 of them for 81 yards. He got hit stick by Ramsey on a crucial 3rd down that he should have held on to. The rookie CeeDee Lamb had 6 targets for 5 receptions and 59 yards. And Michael Gallup had 5 targets for 3 receptions and 50 yards. And we all know what happened, the offensive pass interference that could have probably gone either way, but I think it was the right call. Cowboys' run defense is pretty awful. Same as last year, Gerald McCoy would have helped this team a lot. They need to limit Gurley, even though the Falcons are probably going to throw the ball 50 times again anyway. They also have Blake Jarwin's out for the year now, and Leighton Vander Esch has a collarbone injury, so he'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. So Cowboys are running low on playmakers on both sides of the ball. On to Atlanta, their loss against Seattle. Matt Ryan threw for 54 times, completing 37 passes for 450 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Todd Gurley in his debut had 14 rushes for 56 yards and a touchdown. The trio of receivers for Atlanta, Julio, Ridley, and Gage, all had 12 targets, all brought in 9 catches, and each had 100 yards plus. Julio with 157, Ridley with 130 and 2 touchdowns, and Gage with 114. Hayden Hurst in his debut had 5 targets for 3 receptions and 38 yards. Not bad, but not too great. Jamal Adams was on him a lot, which hurt. The Falcons, they're going to throw the ball. We all know this. Their run defense looked pretty decent against Seattle, but their secondary is brutal. I expect the trio of receivers for the Cowboys to eat them alive this game. And final score for me, 31-28 Cowboys in a close one. And I think if the Falcons do lose this game and do start 0-2, Dan Quinn's job is starting to look like in jeopardy, as he is on a very short leash with the Atlanta Falcons. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Tennessee Titans. We'll start with the Jags first this time. The shocking victory against the Indianapolis Colts last Sunday. Minshew 19 for 20 for 173, 3 touchdowns. Robinson, the only running back they really have, 16 rushes for 62 yards. Chris Thompson was a no-show in this game, 2 receptions for 6 yards. Robinson is going to be the running back moving forward. Keelan Cole, 5 receptions, 47 yards and a touchdown. Chenault, 3 receptions, 37 yards and a touchdown. And Chark had 3 for 25 and 1. ESPN put out some stupid stat that when Keelan Cole catches a touchdown, the Jaguars are 7-0. That is just generally an ESPN stat. Who would even think about that? But anyway, they did end up surprisingly shocking the world and upsetting the Indianapolis Colts. And can they do it again this week? Probably not. Tennessee, even with all their field goal woes, came out against Denver on Monday night and won. Ryan Tannehill threw the ball 43 times for 249 yards, 2 touchdowns and no picks. I highly doubt that Tannehill ever throws for that much again. Derrick Henry had 31 rushes for 116 yards. Again, 31 rushes is a lot, but for Derrick Henry, I'm not surprised. He's the only clear workhorse back, and he really runs that offense. A shock to many, Corey Davis had 7 receptions for 101 yards, and a lot of people have been waiting for Corey Davis to show up ever since he got drafted 5th overall, and we've been waiting saying this is the year this year, and could this finally be the year? It might be for him, because A.J. Brown saw a lot of double teams. He only brought in 5 catches for 39 yards, and Adam Humphries had 6 catches for 47 yards, and Jonnu Smith, a lot of people think is a sleeper tight end this year, 4 catches, 36 yards, and a touchdown. The biggest story of the game was Steven Gostkowski, 1 for 4 in field goals, 1 for 2 for extra points. In all fairness, one of his field goals got blocked, but still, he missed a lot of field goals that night. But he ended up coming up clutch and kicking the game winner against Denver, giving them the 16-14 victory. This week, I think it's going to be a lot of defense, but I think it's going to be 20-10 Tennessee, as I think the Titans' defense is a lot better than Indianapolis is, and I don't see the Jaguars putting up a lot of points. Next, we have Tampa Bay versus Carolina. Start with Tampa, coming off underwhelming performance against New Orleans in their loss. Tom Brady, 23 for 36, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He did rush one in on their first drive of the game. Ronald Jones, 17 rushes for 66 yards. Fournette, 5 for 5 yards. Right now, it's Ronald Jones' backfield to lose, but I do think Fournette is eventually going to take over the helms. I think Fournette only saw limited action because he literally joined the team about a week earlier. But on the receiving end, Chris Godwin, 6 receptions, 79 yards. Scooter Miller, and Tom Brady's going to be his new best friend. 5 receptions for 73 yards. A O.J. Howard game, which we did not see a lot of last year. 4 receptions for 36 yards and a touchdown. Mike Evans was held to only 1 catch on 4 targets in this game for 2 yards and a touchdown. And Gronkowski, 2 receptions for 11 yards. My biggest takeaway from Tampa in Week 1 was that Gronk and Brady, they're not looking good right now. It's only Week 1, don't want to overreact, but Brady is starting to look like his age, and Gronk looks like he hasn't played football in over a year. On to Carolina coming off the loss to Las Vegas. Bridgewater, 22 for 34 for 270 and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey, 23 for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. Robbie Anderson, 6 receptions, 115 yards, and the 75-yard touchdown that brought them back within the game. DJ Moore only had 4 catches for 54 yards. Christian McCaffrey had 3 catches for 38, and Samuel had 5 for 38. My biggest shock to this game was Bridgewater took a lot of deep shots. We didn't really see that last year when he filled in for Drew Brees and the Saints. That might have just been the play calling, and Sean Payton wanted to be more conservative as he knew Bridgewater's limits. But Bridgewater did look like a pretty solid quarterback in this game. However, on the other end, their defense is terrible. They lost a lot of pieces last year, mainly Luke Kuechly to retirement. But this defense is young, they're rebuilding, and I expect them to be down in a lot of games this year, and that's why I have them losing 34-17 against Tampa Bay. I think if Tampa Bay can limit their turnovers and possibly get the run game in the rhythm, as Josh Jacobs ran all over Carolina, they can easily control the game and bounce back after that Week 1 loss. Next, we have the Denver Broncos versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. For Denver, coming off a loss in which they should not have lost because they had a 12-play, 74-yard drive that ended up in a turnover on downs. Even if they kicked the field goal, they could have won the game. Drew Lock, 22 for 33 for 216, a touchdown, 2 fumbles, but he didn't lose any. He looked all right that game. He didn't really wow anyone, but he definitely is their QB of the future. Melvin Gordon looked really good, 5 rushes for 78 yards and a touchdown. Phillip Lindsay, 7 for 24. We all know Phillip Lindsay is hurt with turf toe now, so it seems like Gordon is going to be the clear-cut back for a few weeks. Noah Fant, 5 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy, 4 receptions for 56 yards. And Patrick, 4 receptions for 29. Cortland Sutton was out this game. And Drew Lock was looking all over the place. I think Jerry Jeudy was definitely his favorite target. Key for Denver in this game is to try to get Gordon going because Pittsburgh's defense is very good against the run, as we saw on Monday night. On to that, we'll go to Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger, 21 for 32 for 229 and 3 touchdowns against the Giants. Benny Schnell coming in as James Conner has an ankle sprain. 19 rushes for 113 yards. Even before Conner got hurt, he wasn't producing anything. He only had 6 rushes for 9 yards, and Schnell looked like the better running back. Juju had 6 receptions for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Johnson, 6 receptions for 57 yards. The biggest takeaway from this game for the Steelers, they held Saquon Barkley to 6 yards on 15 attempts, which is ridiculous, especially for Saquon Barkley. This run defense is legit. This defense is legit, and I think the Steelers are a sleeper favorite this year. I think if the Steelers can limit Melvin Gordon, they can easily win this game and control it. I think it's going to be more defense, but I also say AJ Bouye is probably going to be out this game, so Juju should have a nice day. I have Pittsburgh taking it 20-10. Next, we have the Rams facing the Eagles. We'll start with the Rams. Rams coming off a pretty impressive victory against the Cowboys on Sunday night. Jared Goff, 20 for 31, 275 yards, 0 touchdowns, and a pick. Malcolm Brown, the shock to everyone, 18 rushes, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cam Akers, 14 rushes, 39 yards. Robert Woods, 6 receptions, 105 yards. Higbee, 3 receptions, 40 yards. Cooper Kupp, 40 for 40. Now, the key for the Rams this game, they have to try to get the run game going again. That was key to their victory against Dallas, as it didn't force Jared Goff to win the game. He had to make the throws when he did, but he didn't have to beat the Cowboys with their arm. Also, this is looking like another great matchup versus a banged-up Eagles line. We saw what the Rams did to the Cowboys on Sunday night, and the Eagles giving up 8 sacks to Washington. Aaron Donald's going to have himself a day. It would also be intriguing to see which wide receiver Darius Slay lines up on. Woods or Kupp, whoever he does line up on, he might take out of the picture. But Kupp and Woods are both equally able to produce on their own. Now on to the Eagles. After a disappointing Week 1, up 17-0 versus the Washington football team out of everyone, the Eagles blew a 17-0 lead and lost 27-17. Wentz, 24 for 42, 270, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 2 fumbles, and 1 fumble loss. Boston Scott, 9 for 35 rushing yards. Corey Clement, 6 for 19 rushing yards. Dallas Goedert, 8 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Jalen Reagor, 1 for 55 yards. D-Jax was pretty much absent this game. 2 receptions for 46 yards. Greg Ward, 5 for 31 yards. And Zach Ertz, 3 for 18 yards and a touchdown. Zach Ertz dropped a pass. This Eagles team they're hurt. Can't really blame everything on Wentz, but I think this loss was definitely on Wentz. 2 turnovers that were pretty poor. 2 picks that were pretty poor at least. The fumble that he lost, he just tries to do too much with the ball and tries to play hero ball every play. In his 5th year, he's got to know that he's got to throw it away at certain times. There was no run game as Miles Sanders was hurt. Now, Miles Sanders and Lane Johnson are both scheduled to return for this game, so that gives the Eagles a big boost, and I think they can get the run game going, as Ezekiel Elliott had himself a nice day. Even with all the O-line woes, Ezekiel Elliott had himself a really good day against the Rams. I expect Miles Sanders to have a good day. If the Eagles can protect Wentz and give him some time, I easily think the Eagles can win this game, as their run defense is so good. I think they can stop Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers, and I don't think Jared Goff can win against Wentz. I have the Eagles winning 24-21 and a hard-fought game. Next, we have the New York Jets against the San Francisco 49ers. There's not really much to talk about with the Jets. They're pretty awful. Adam Gase, I doubt he lasts the whole season. Sam Darnold, 21 for 35, 215 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Frank Gore, 6 for 24, Bell, 6 for 14. Jamison Crowder, the only productive player on this team last week. 13 targets, 7 receptions, 115 yards, and 1 touchdown. Most of that was on the 69-yard screen pass that he caught that went for a touchdown. Still, 13 targets. Chris Herndon, 6 receptions, 37 yards. Bell had 2 receptions for 32 yards. We all know Bell got hurt. Adam Gase said that he should not have put Bell back out there when he got hurt. So, pretty much Adam Gase's fault that Bell's out a couple weeks. It's looking like another lackluster season for the Jets. Sam Darnold just looked completely lost, as this team is just poorly built around him. And I hope they put some pieces around him soon, because I think he can be a good quarterback, but not with Adam Gase and the Jets. On to the 49ers. Coming off a disappointing loss to the Cardinals, Jimmy Garoppolo, 19 for 33, 259 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert, The biggest story from this offense out of this game, 15 rushes, 56 yards, but he had 4 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. Jerick McKinnon in his first game back in over 2 years, 3 rushes, 24 yards, 3 receptions, 20 yards and a touchdown. Tevin Coleman got 4 rushes for 18 yards. And Tevin Coleman wasn't even really supposed to play, but he ended up playing. And George Kittle, 4 receptions, 44 yards. He came up banged up. He has a knee sprain. He might actually be out for this game, but I don't really think that matters. Richard Sherman was also placed on IR, so the 49ers keep losing players to injury, as they already had a lot of injuries to begin with. Even with all the injuries, there's no way the 49ers lose this game. I have them beating the Jets easily 28-7. Now on to Buffalo versus Miami. We'll start with Buffalo. Buffalo looked really good against the Jets, although it was arguably the worst team in the NFL in the Jets. Now they're facing off what could be the second worst team in the NFL in Miami Dolphins. Josh Allen against the Jets, 33 completions for 46 attempts, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 fumbles lost. He also had 14 rushing attempts for 57 yards and a touchdown. I don't think we'll ever see Josh Allen get 46 attempts again. That is a lot for Josh Allen, especially in a game where they were up the most of the time. With the running back committee, Singletary 9 rushes for 30 yards, 5 receptions for 23 yards. Moss 9 rushes for 11 yards, 3 receptions for 16 yards and a touchdown. This running back committee, I think it's a 50-50 split right now. Singletary got a little bit more action, but Moss caught the touchdown. Both weren't really effective at all in the ground game, as the Jets, if they had any positive, it's definitely their defensive line. Stephon Diggs in his Bills debut had 8 receptions for 86 yards. John Brown had 6 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown. And Cole Beasley had 4 receptions for 58 yards. The only critique I would have about the Bills from this game is Josh Allen does miss a lot of easy throws. He missed Dawson Knox, I believe, for 1 touchdown. He overthrew him. And I think he overthrew John Brown for the second, but he definitely missed 2 wide open touchdowns that he wished he got back. But overall, the Bills team does look really good. Now on to the Dolphins. Ryan Fitzpatrick against the Patriots, 20 for 30, 190 yards, and 3 picks. I don't know why Ryan Fitzpatrick is still playing. I think soon enough, by week 4, we'll probably see Tua out there. I don't see what could hurt about putting Tua in. Yeah, he could get hurt, but why draft him if that's what you're worried about? He is healthy right now. The Dolphins' run game, with their 2 premier backs, who everyone thought would be the 2 premier backs, Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, was god-awful. Both of them combined for 13 rushes for 29 yards and a touchdown, while Gaskin had 9 attempts for 40 yards. I think Jordan Howard is only going to be used on the goal line from now on. 8 rushes for 7 yards and a touchdown. That is not what we expect out of Jordan Howard. Devontae Parker called it 4 passes, 47 yards, but he also re-aggravated his hamstring injury, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be out for this game. Preston Williams brought in 2 catches for 41 yards, and Mike Gesicki 3 for 30 yards. The Dolphins' offense is going to have nothing going this game, especially with Parker out. Now, Williams is probably going to be shadowed by Tre'Davious White. The only one I could see having any sort of productive game is Mike Gesicki, and I don't think that's even going to happen. So I have the Bills easily winning this game 27-10, and I think 10 points is generous for this Miami Dolphins team. Next, we have Minnesota versus Indianapolis. We'll start with Minnesota. Minnesota's defense got whooped by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. They looked god-awful. Kirk Cousins, 19 for 25, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. You got to let Kirk Cousins throw a bit more. I know many people wouldn't think that, but they didn't really throw the ball to the fourth quarter, and they did find some success throwing the ball. Dalvin Cook, 12 rushes for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alexander Mattison, 6 rushes for 50 yards. And Madison was also involved in the passing game more, which is interesting because that running back split is not what I expected for week 1. They might be trying to limit Cook so he doesn't get hurt, but you also just paid him all that money. Adam Thielen brought in 6 catches for 110 yards for 2 touchdowns. And Bissy Johnson, brought in 3 catches for 56 yards. Overall, Minnesota seems like they're going to be down in a lot of games this year. A lot of people thought they were going to win that division. It was only week 1, but that defense, they need to fix something quick because that secondary is brutal. MVS and Lazard should not be killing them like they did, and Aaron Rodgers made it look easy out there. On to the Colts. Phillip Rivers in his Colts debut, 26 for 46, 363, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. A Phillip Rivers game, what can I say? He does this every year. Thank God, Indianapolis should be happy they only signed him for 1 year because he's not good anymore. Even with a good O-line, arguably the best in the league, he still turns the ball over and forces throws. The biggest story out of the Colts, obviously, is Marlon Mack is out for the year now. So Jonathan Taylor, their second-round rookie pick, is going to have to take the helms. Taylor in his debut had 9 rushes for 22 yards, but he also had 6 receptions for 67 yards. And he looked pretty good. And Hines, the shock to everyone, had 28 rushing yards and a touchdown and then 45 receiving yards and a touchdown. Hines was very involved before Taylor even got his first snap. So now Hines is only going to have a bigger role, as this is going to be a 1-2 punch with Taylor and Hines. Paris Campbell might start becoming Phillip Rivers' favorite target. 6 receptions, 71 yards. T.Y. Hilton, 4 for 53 yards. It seems like Paris Campbell is going to be Rivers' Keenan Allen, as T.Y. Hilton is going to be pushed to the Mike Williams role and not be as effective, as Paris Campbell is going to start taking this number 1 wide receiver role. I think this game's going to be pretty sloppy. Both defenses not what we thought they would be, but I think the Vikings come out with the win, 31-20. I think the Colts just aren't as good as everyone thought, and the Vikings aren't that good either, but I think the Vikings need to win more, and I think the Colts start 0-2. Next, we have Detroit versus Green Bay Packers. We'll start off with Detroit. A heartbreaking loss to the Bears that blew a huge lead in the 4th to Mitch Trubisky, out of all people. Matt Stafford, in his return, 24 for 42, 297 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. He didn't play bad. I don't think the play calling was all that well for him. I think Matt Patricia is a pretty terrible coach, and I also think, along with Gase, he does not last the whole season. A big surprise to many, Adrian Peterson, the recently signed back for the Lions, 14 rushes for 93 yards. That is crazy. Adrian Peterson still putting up numbers at this age. Let go by the Washington football team, now finds himself arguably the lead back for now. Kerryon Johnson, 7 rushes for 14 yards. DeAndre Swift only got 3 rushes for 8 yards. Peterson was also involved in the passing game a lot, more than most of his career. Amendola came up with 5 catches for 81 yards. Hawkinson, 5 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. And Marvin Jones Jr., 4 receptions for 55 yards. The biggest story coming out of Detroit outside of blowing the lead was DeAndre Swift dropping the game-winning touchdown in his first ever game. I'm not sure if that will affect his touches and going forward. I don't think it should, but maybe for a game or two he might be benched or might get very, very limited roles. But on to the Green Bay Packers. As I said before, I thought Aaron Rodgers was the best player in Week 1, and right behind him I have Devontae Adams as the second best player in Week 1. So Aaron Rodgers, 32 for 44, 364 yards and 4 touchdowns, leading this Packers team, who many thought he needed a weapon, wide receiver 2. He probably still does, but he slung the ball around. Devontae Adams, 17 targets, 14 receptions, 156 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Valdez-Scantling, 4 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Allen Lazard, 4 receptions, 63 yards, and a touchdown. So all 3 wide receivers had a pretty good day. We'll have to see who the clear number 2 is between MVS and Lazard. But Devontae Adams is crazy this game. 17 targets. That's insane. Another story with the Packers, the run game, they had 4 running backs carry the ball. Aaron Jones had 16 attempts for 66 yards and a touchdown. and Jamal Williams at 7 for 21. It would be interesting to see going forward how much of a split the running back committee is. I think it's definitely Aaron Jones' spot to lose. I think they should involve Aaron Jones more, but if the Minnesota secondary is awful, but their front seven's pretty good, so his stat line wasn't awful. Considering the Lions secondary is worse than it was last year, I think Aaron Rodgers has another big day, and I think the Packers start 2-0 and the Lions drop to 0-2. 35-24 Green Bay. Next, we have Chicago facing off against the New York Giants. We'll start with Chicago. Trubisky, for the first 3 quarters, looked completely awful. He looked like he wouldn't even last the whole game. I thought Foles was going to come in. But he ended up 20 for 36, 242 yards, 3 touchdowns and 0 picks, all 3 touchdowns coming in the third. David Montgomery rushed the ball 13 times for 64 yards. Trey Cohen 7 times for 41 yards. Miller had 76 yards and the game-winning touchdown. Extend AR, Allen Robinson, 5 receptions for 74 yards. Jimmy Graham, 3 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown in his first ever game as a Bear. My biggest question with this Bears team is how long until Trubisky comes out? Because, yes, they won the game against Detroit, but he did not look good until the fourth quarter. I'd probably give it, if the Bears lose a couple more games, they end up like 2-4, I could see Foles coming in as a desperation move. But Allen Robinson also wants a new contract. He's very unhappy about it. There were rumors that he requested a trade, but his agent said he didn't. And I think the Bears' defense is starting to look a lot worse than what we're used to. I think it's definitely missing the key pieces it's lost, and they are not as formidable as they were 2 years ago. On to the Giants. A loss against the Steelers, which honestly wasn't as bad as a loss as the final score shows. Daniel Jones, 26 for 41, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He didn't play that bad, considering the Pittsburgh defense is probably top 3 in the NFL, maybe 1. He did make some mistakes that only rookie QBs should make, but I think he will fix that. He had an absolute dime to Slayton in the end zone for the 1 touchdown. The biggest story out of this game, out of New York Giants Week 1, Saquon Barkley, 15 attempts for 6 yards rushing against the Pittsburgh front 7. That is not what you expect out of Saquon Barkley. However, he did get 6 receptions for 60 yards, which isn't bad, but matched with the rushing yards, pretty bad day for Saquon. Darius Slayton, the big name wide receiver out of this game, 6 receptions, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns, while Sterling Shepard had 6 receptions for 47 yards. And Evan Ingram just disappears in this offense. He is starting to lose his role, I feel like, as the years go by. I believe he only had 1 reception this game. That is not going to cut it for Evan Ingram, who many believe should be one of the best tight ends in the league. Overall, I think this is going to be a very sloppy game. I could see the Giants pulling out a win, and I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm going to go with the Bears, 17-13. I think it's going to be very sloppy. Bears shockingly starting 2-0, when many thought they wouldn't, but who knows, maybe they have a run in them. Probably not. Next, we have the Washington football team versus the Arizona Cardinals. Both teams coming off upset wins. Arizona not so much, but Washington definitely. We'll start with the Washington football team. Dwayne Haskins, 17 for 31, 178 yards, and a touchdown. Antonio Gibson, who many believe is going to eventually be the RB1, 9 rushes for 36 yards, while Peyton Barber had 17 rushes for 29 yards and 2 touchdowns. 17 for 29 is brutal. Gibson is definitely going to take over that role, but I think Barber will probably still get the goal line carries. Terry McLaurin, 5 receptions for 61 yards, isn't too bad. He was shadowed by Slay. And Logan Thomas, 4 receptions for 37 yards and a touchdown. The biggest takeaway from the Washington football team was their front 7 and defense. They caused 3 turnovers, Carson Wentz 2 picks, and the fumble at the end of the game to seal it. 8 sacks against the Philadelphia Eagles. Their O-line was banged up, but still, they're going to cause pressure to Kyler Murray this game. However, the way Arizona can combat that is the Washington football team defensive backs and secondary is pretty bad. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a field day. On to the Cardinals against their 24-20 win against the 49ers. Kyler Murray, 26-40, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 13 rushes for 91 yards and a touchdown. He had 100 yards until the final 2 plays of the game on QB Niels that lost him 9 yards and put him under 100. Kenyon Drake, 16 rushes for 60 yards and a touchdown. Chase Edmonds, 6 rushes, 26 yards, 3 receptions for 19 yards and a touchdown. There was a lot more Chase Edmonds in this game than I expected. Kenyon Drake is still the RB1 for now, but I would keep an eye on that. Chase Edmonds might increasingly work up his workload. Biggest story of the game, DeAndre Hopkins, 14 receptions, 151 yards. They won that trade easily. DeAndre Hopkins is still a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. He could be 1. It depends on your opinion. But he just transforms this offense a lot. Larry Fitzgerald was the only one who came close to anything in targets and share for 4 receptions for 34 yards. Yeah, this is going to be Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, and DeAndre Hopkins all season. I don't see any other receiver making much noise, but I have Arizona easily winning this game 31-7. Might be a little bit closer than that, but I don't think so. Next, we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the LA Chargers. We'll start with the Chiefs. Coming off their Thursday night opening night victory against the Texans. Mahomes, 24 for 32, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Newly acquired rookie running back, first-round pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 25 rushes, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown. Sammy Watkins, Week 1 Watkins, always the best player on the team. 7 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, 5, 46 yards, and a touchdown. And then Travis Kelce, 6 for 50 and a touchdown. This Kansas City defense looks really good. Even though the Texans don't have DeAndre Hopkins, they caused pressure all game. They made Watson uncomfortable. They made him have to get out of the pocket. And even though the O-line for the Texans is still not good, it's still an impressive performance. Tyrann Mathieu even said they should have held them to less points than they really did, but nevertheless, their defense looks like it just left off looks just as it did where they left off last season as Super Bowl. On to the Chargers. I can't see Tyrod Taylor being the quarterback for this team past Week 6. Unless he turns it around against a poor Bengals defense. 16 for 30 for 208 yards, 0 touchdowns. He did not look good at all this game. Another name to bring up, Austin Eckler had 19 rushes for 84 yards and 0 catches. They got to completely flip that stat. You need to pass the ball to Eckler. He's a receiving back. He makes things happen out of the receiving. 19 rushes is probably I think it's the most he's ever gotten in his career, and I think it will stay that because there's no way they can keep doing it. But Anthony Lynn did say having a mobile quarterback does eliminate some of that, so we'll see how it goes. Rookie running back Joshua Kelly, 12 rushes for 60 yards and a touchdown. Hunter Henry, my bad. 5 receptions for 73 yards. Mike Williams, 4 receptions for 69 yards. And Keenan Allen, 4 receptions for 37 yards. It would be interesting to see Keenan Allen's production with Tyrod Taylor moving forward. And if they ever do make the transition to Herbert, if Keenan Allen will go back to the numbers he was producing with Phillip Rivers. Because I definitely think Herbert is a better quarterback and will take more shots to Allen. But overall, this Chargers defense is really good. I don't think the offense can keep up at all with Kansas City's. I have the Chiefs winning this game 35-17, and it could be easily a lot less closer than that, but I'll be generous enough to give the Chargers 17. Next, we have Houston versus Baltimore, and we'll start off with Houston. Houston having arguably the hardest schedule in the first 2 games. First, you're facing off against Super Bowl champions in Kansas City. Now you're playing Baltimore, who many think can win the Super Bowl this year, and if not, they're definitely a top 2 team right behind Kansas City. Deshaun Watson, 20 for 32, 253 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. They're newly acquired in the Hopkins deal. David Johnson, 11 rushes, 77 yards, and a touchdown. 3 receptions for 32 yards. He played really well against Kansas City. He looked like his former self, but we'll see how that goes against a much better run defense. The only receiver who made any noise for the Texans was Will Fuller. 8 receptions for 112 yards. Next was the tight end, Atkins. 2 receptions for 39 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Cooks, 2 receptions for 20 yards. This Texans team does not look good at all. I really don't see them making the playoffs this year. They won't have Duke Johnson for this game. Not like that even matters. I think they're purely missing a wide receiver one like Hopkins. And Bill O'Brien is tearing this team apart. I don't know why he's still the general manager and the coach, but Texans are going to start the season 0-2. Nevertheless, Baltimore coming off a blowout win against Cleveland. Lamar Jackson, 20 for 25, 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. Added 45 rushing yards on the ground. Mark Ingram, biggest story of the game, 10 rushes for 29 yards, while rookie J.K. Dobbins had 7 rushes for 22 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Dobbins got the majority of the goal line work. So it'd be really interesting to see moving forward if Mark Ingram is going to stay the starting running back or if he's going to get replaced by J.K. Dobbins, just how he got replaced by Kamara in New Orleans. But even if Dobbins does take over, I think Dobbins-Ingram 1-2 punch would be very successful. It worked in New Orleans. I can't see why it wouldn't work in Baltimore, but we'll see. Marquise Hollywood-Brown, 5 receptions for 101 yards. Willie Snead, 4 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. Mark Andrews, 5 receptions, 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson starting right where he left off, MVP form. 275 yards passing and 3 passing touchdowns is insane. Well, that's not insane, but it's a crazy stat line. Lamar, I think, is improving as a passer, which is the thing that many knock on him for. And I also think this defense is very underrated, and it's going to be maybe the best defense in the league. Calais Campbell it just makes that run defense so much better. They cause problems for Nick Chubb, and I think they'll probably cause a lot of problems for David Johnson too. I have Baltimore winning this game 41-27. I don't see it being that close. Texans, they couldn't keep up with Kansas City. I don't think they're going to keep up with Baltimore. I think Baltimore's offense isn't better, but it's more dynamic and harder to stop. So I have the Ravens winning this game. On to the Sunday Night Football game. Seattle versus New England. Not going to lie, the promo for this game got me hyped, but sadly it kind of isn't the same without Brady, even though I think Cam brings more to the table in terms of dynamic play calling than Brady. Seattle coming off an impressive victory against the Falcons. Russell Wilson looked amazing. 322 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 31 for 35 completion percentage. Carlos Hyde was something that caught my eye this game. 7 carries for 23 yards and a touchdown, while Chris Carson had 6 carries for 21 yards. So Hyde had more rushes than Chris Carson this game, which I can't see happening again, and I hope it wouldn't happen again. If Seattle wants to be successful, I think you got to get Carson the ball. But he only had 12 touches total this game. He had 6 receptions for 45 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is why a lot of people thought he had a lot better of a day. But 12 touches is not good enough for Chris Carson. I don't think Carlos Hyde is good at all anymore, and I definitely don't think he should be stealing rushes from Chris Carson like that. 2 receivers, DJ Metcalf, 4 receptions, 95 yards and a touchdown. He had an easy drop, but he made up for that with the touchdown. Tyler Lockett caught all 8 of his targets for 92 yards. I think they need to let Russ throw the ball more. Pete Carroll said he wants to rush more, but I think this team needs to shift their identity towards throwing the football because Russell Wilson's unbelievable. He's top 3 quarterback in the league, and I think this team will go far if they let Russ throw the ball. On New England, Cam Newton in his New England debut, 15 for 19, 155 yards, but he added 75 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Sony Michel, 10 rushes, 37 yards and a touchdown. Rex Burkhead got 7 carries for 32 yards. The receivers, Julian Edelman, 5 receptions, 57 yards. N'Keal Harry, 5 receptions for 39 yards. He did fumble the ball that went out of the end zone when he tried to go for a touchdown, and that really hurt the team. They didn't put up as much points as they should have. James White got 3 receptions for 30 yards. I thought New England, their defense is still going to carry them a lot this year. That defense is really good. Stephon Gilmore is still one of the best corners in the league. I think that matchup was very interesting. The New England defensive backs versus Seattle wide receivers. I think New England has to pressure Russ this game and try to make him uncomfortable, even though it's pretty hard to do. And considering Gurley had a pretty solid day, I think New England has to try to get the run game going a little bit. Sony Michel, 10 for 37 and 1. That's not bad, but if they can get the run game open, it can open up so much for Cam. Overall, I think Seattle wins a close game, 28-20. Finally, we have the Monday night game, Las Vegas Raiders versus the New Orleans Saints. We'll start with the Raiders. Raiders coming off a victory against the Carolina Panthers. Derek Carr, 22 for 30, 239 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs, the big story out of that game. 25 rushes, 93 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 receptions for 46 yards. Last year, he didn't have any game with 4 receptions, so that's a big plus for the Raiders. Rookie Henry Ruggs, 3 receptions for 55 yards. Darren Waller, 6 receptions for 45 yards. Nelson Aguilar, out of all people, 1 reception, 23 yards and a touchdown. He called it. Already making more plays than he did for the Eagles last year. This Raiders defense is pretty bad. They let Teddy Bridgewater throw all over. Well, not throw all over him, but he let Teddy Bridgewater keep him in the game. And I think they need to take advantage of the New Orleans offensive injuries. Michael Thomas is not going to play in this game. I think they need to try to use that to their advantage and possibly try to get Josh Jacobs going, but this New Orleans run defense is really good. On the New Orleans, Drew Brees looked pretty old against Tampa Bay. He looked pretty bad. 18 for 30, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara, 12 rushes for 16 yards and a touchdown. That is pretty brutal. 5 receptions for 51 yards and a touchdown now. Latavius Murray had more rushing attempts than Kamara, 15 for 48. Jared Cook, 5 receptions, 80 yards. Michael Thomas, 3 receptions for 17. Emmanuel Sanders in the Saints debut, 3 receptions for 15 yards. Emmanuel Sanders and Traquan Smith are going to have to step up for the weeks that MT is absent. I think they can do the job. This would be a good game to get going too. Las Vegas does not have a good secondary. I think this could be a good game for Breeze to get himself going too. And I expect Latavius Murray to have a heavy role in this game, especially when Michael Thomas hurt. I also expect Taysom Hill to probably get some snaps at wide receiver and do some of the plays that they like to run with Taysom Hill. Overall, I think the Saints easily win this game, 30-17. I think the Saints defense is too much for the Raiders' pretty poor offense, and I think the Saints go start 2-0, strong start to the season, and commandingly take first place in the NFC South. Well, there you have it. Those are my game picks for week 2, and check in with you next week for my week 3 picks. We'll see how the season goes.